The third crawl ship tried to turn away. It managed to rotate halfway before 3 missiles hit its engine section. The explosion sent debris spinning through space. The ship went dark and began drifting helplessly. Vexthor's flagship took several direct hits. Alarms blared throughout his bridge. His crew shouted in panic as systems failed one after another. The shields that should have protected them were useless against the coordinated attack. "Retreat!" Vexthor screamed into his communications. "All ships retreat now." The 4th and 5th ships tried to run. They turned and fired their engines at maximum power. But the Persistence's targeting systems had already locked onto them. More missiles launched, more railgun rounds fired. Within seconds, both ships were crippled. The entire battle lasted less than 30 seconds. 5 crawl warships had been reduced to floating wreckage or disabled hulks. Only Vexthor's flagship remained partially functional, though its engines were dead and half its systems were offline. Captain Chen sat calmly in her chair, watching the results on her display. Her crew stared at the screens in shock. They had known their ship had weapons, of course. All human ships did. But they had never seen them used like this. They had never understood what their cargo hauler really was. Thomas, the engineer, finally found his voice. "Captain, I had no idea we had this much firepower. This is a cargo ship. How is this possible?" Chen looked at her young crew. Most of them were new to space travel. They had not lived through the Formian conflict 20 years ago. They had not learned the hard lessons humanity had paid for in blood. "After first contact with the Formians, we learned something important," Chen explained. "We learned that space is dangerous. We learned that we can't rely on others to protect us. We learned that every human ship needs to be able to defend itself." She pulled up a document on her screen and shared it with the crew. It was an official Earth United mandate from 18 years ago. The title read, "Universal Defense Initiative. Every human vessel, no matter its primary purpose, must be capable of defending itself and others." Chen read from the document. "There are no civilian ships in human space. There are only ships not currently fighting. Every vessel will be built with modular weapon systems. Every crew will be trained in combat procedures." Marcus looked at the cargo containers that had opened to reveal weapons. "So all those mining equipment containers are real mining equipment," Chen confirmed. "But the containers themselves are also weapon platforms, dual purpose. Everything on this ship serves multiple functions. Those support struts you walk past every day, missile batteries, that extra plating we added last month, layered armor, the backup power systems, they're sized to run weapons." She stood and walked to the main viewport. Outside, the disabled crawl ships drifted in space. Emergency lights blinked on their hulls. She felt no satisfaction from the destruction, only a tired acceptance of necessity. "B. Galaxy taught us to be paranoid," Chen said quietly. "Every species we met tried to take advantage of us at least once. Some, like the Formians, tried to conquer us. Others, like the Crawl, just wanted to steal from us. We decided that would never happen again, not without a fight." A transmission request came through from Vexthor's damaged flagship. Chen accepted it. The Crawl commander's face appeared on screen again. This time there was no laughter. His gray skin had turned pale. His 4 eyes showed fear and confusion. "Please," Vexthor said. His voice was weak. "We surrender. Don't destroy us. Our life support is failing. We have wounded." Chen studied him for a long moment. Part of her wanted to deny his request. He had come here to rob and possibly kill her crew. He had laughed at her warning. He deserved no mercy, but that was not the human way. Humans fought hard, but they were not cruel. They followed rules even when their enemies did not. "We will take you aboard," Chen said. "Your crew will receive medical attention. You will be treated according to interstellar law. But understand this, Vexthor. You chose this path. You made your decision when you ignored my warning." She cut the transmission and turned to her crew. "Thomas, prepare the cargo bay for prisoners. Marcus, send the standard distress and combat report to all human vessels in range. Medical team, get ready to receive wounded. We do this by the book." The crew moved to follow her orders. They worked with new understanding. They were not just cargo haulers. They were defenders. They were warriors when they needed to be. That was what it meant to be human in this galaxy. As the Persistence extended docking tubes to the crippled Kral flagship, Chen looked out at the debris field. 2 ships completely destroyed, 3 disabled, all because they had made one simple mistake. They had assumed humans were easy prey. They had thought a cargo ship was helpless. They had learned too late that in human space, there was no such thing as an unarmed vessel. The universe was about to learn that lesson too, because Marcus had already sent the report, and every human ship within 3 sectors was changing course to respond. The indomitable will had been fighting for 6 hours. The crew was exhausted, but they couldn't stop. Not now. Not when they had come so far. Elena walked through the damaged corridors of her ship, inspecting the repairs. Emergency lights flickered in sections where main power had failed. The smell of burned metal and plastic hung in the air. Medical teams rushed past, carrying wounded crew members to the overcrowded infirmary. She stopped at a blast door that had been sealed shut. Behind it, 12 crew members had died when a Krovan energy beam pierced the hull. Elena placed her hand on the cold metal. 12 more names to add to the growing list. 47 dead so far. Hundreds injured. "Captain, you're needed on the bridge," Park's voice crackled through her communicator. Elena returned to the command center. The main screen showed the tactical situation. They had penetrated deep into Krovan space, but the defenses grew denser. With every kilometer, what started as thousands of weapons platforms had become tens of thousands. The Krovan really didn't want visitors, Park observed grimly. "Show me the path ahead," Elena ordered. The screen displayed a 3-dimensional. Between their current position and the Krovan homeworld lay a nightmare of overlapping defense zones. The AI tactical system had calculated their chances of survival at less than 3%. "We've beaten worse odds," Elena said, though she didn't feel as confident as she sounded. "Captain, we're receiving multiple transmissions from the Covenant," the communications officer reported. "Admiral Krell is demanding we turn back immediately. He says they're sending a fleet to extract us." "Extract us or arrest us?" Elena asked. He didn't specify. Elena smiled bitterly. The Covenant had kept humanity trapped in their assigned sector for 200 years. They controlled access to the rare elements needed for faster-than-light travel, for advanced medicine, for terraform technology. Without those resources, human colonies were dying. Elena's own daughter Sarah lived on New Hope, a colony world where the terraforming had failed. Children were getting sick from the thin atmosphere. They needed element 07, found only in forbidden regions of space. The Covenant said humanity wasn't ready for such resources. They said humans needed another 1,000 years of development, another 1,000 years of being treated like primitive children. Elena had decided humanity was done waiting. "Ignore Krell's transmission," she ordered. "Continue forward." The next wave of Krovan defenses hit them hard. The platforms had learned from the earlier battles. They adapted their tactics, coordinating in ways that seemed almost intelligent. "They're boxing us in," Park shouted as energy beams converged from multiple directions. The ship couldn't dodge them all. One beam carved through the starboard side, causing explosive decompression on 3 decks. Another struck the engine section, reducing their power output by 30%. "Engineering, I need those engines back," Elena demanded. "Working on it, Captain," Chief Engineer Maria Rodriguez responded. "But we're holding this ship together with prayers and duct tape at this point." Elena made a decision. "Helm, new course. Take us directly through that cluster of platforms ahead." Everyone on the bridge stared at her. "Captain, that's suicide," Park said carefully. "We can't survive that much concentrated fire." "We can't survive this battle by playing it safe either," Elena replied. "They expect us to avoid danger, to look for the safest path. We're going to do the opposite." The indomitable will accelerated toward the densest concentration of enemy platforms. Every crew member held their breath as they charged into certain death. "All weapons, Continuous fire, Elena commanded. Don't give them a second to lock on, properly. Helm, random evasion pattern 7. Pattern 7 was considered insane. It involved constant spinning and tumbling, making it almost impossible to aim weapons accurately, but it also made the ship incredibly difficult to hit. The Indomitable Will became a whirling, firing storm. Railgun slugs tore through platforms, missiles exploded in all directions. The ship took hits, terrible hits, but it kept moving forward through the chaos. Across the galaxy, Admiral Krell watched the human ship's impossible maneuver. 40 years ago, he had led the Zephyron fleet into this same region. 50 mighty warships, each more powerful than the human Dreadnought. The Krovan defenses had destroyed them all in less than an hour. Yet this single human ship had been fighting for 7 hours and was still alive. Still advancing. How are they doing this? Krell asked no one in particular. Elder Morna studied the tactical display. They fight without elegance or grace. Their ship is crude. Their tactics are unrefined, but they have something we lost long ago. What is that? Desperation. And the absolute refusal to accept defeat. On the Indomitable Will, the bridge crew worked like a machine despite their exhaustion. Damage control teams performed miracles, patching holes in the hull while under fire. Engineers kept critical systems running with improvised repairs that would make any proper technician cry. Medical teams treated wounded crew members and sent them back to their stations because there was no one else to replace them. This was humanity's strength. Not superior technology, not ancient wisdom, but the stubborn, bloody-minded refusal to give up. The ability to take damage that would destroy other species and keep fighting anyway. "Captain, we're through the cluster," Park reported with disbelief in his voice. "We actually made it through." Behind them, hundreds of destroyed platforms drifted in the void. The Indomitable Will was battered, smoking, barely holding together, but still moving forward. "How far to the Krovan homeworld?" Elena asked. 20,000 kilometers, but there's one more defensive layer. Park's voice dropped. "Captain, it's massive. Thousands of platforms in a perfect sphere around the planet. No gaps, no weaknesses." Elena pulled up her personal display and looked at a photo of Sarah. Her daughter smiled back at her from happier times before the sickness started. Before children began dying on New Hope because the Covenant wouldn't share the resources to fix the terraforming. "Then we go through them," Elena said simply. "Captain, I don't think we can survive." "We will survive," Elena interrupted firmly. "Because we must. Because our families need us, because every human colony in Covenant space depends on us succeeding. We're not just fighting for this ship. We're fighting for humanity's future." She turned to face her crew. They were exhausted, wounded, afraid, but they were also determined. "One more push," Elena said. "One more impossible thing. Are you with me?" The bridge crew responded with a ragged cheer. The Indomitable Will, battered but unbroken, accelerated toward the final defense layer and the mysterious Krovan homeworld that waited beyond. The final defensive sphere was like nothing they had encountered before. Thousands of weapons platforms floated in perfect geometric formation, creating an impenetrable wall of firepower around the Krovan homeworld. Each platform was larger and more advanced than the ones they had fought through earlier. Elena stared at the display, calculating. The Indomitable Will had barely survived the journey here. The ship was running on emergency power in half its sections. They had lost 62 crew members. The medical bay was overwhelmed with wounded. Their weapons were nearly depleted and their armor had been burned away in dozens of places. "Captain, incoming transmission," the communications officer said. "It's not from the Covenant. The source is the planet itself." Elena straightened. "Put it through." The main screen flickered. Instead of showing an alien face or even text, it displayed a stream of mathematical equations. Pure data flowing in patterns that seemed almost alive. "It's beautiful," whispered Lieutenant Chen from the science station. "Captain, this is the most sophisticated AI code I've ever seen. It's adapting to our language protocols in real time." The equations resolved into words. The voice that emerged was neither male nor female, neither young nor old. It simply was. You have passed through the gauntlet, the voice said. You are the first in 317 years. Elena's heart raced. Who are you? I am the Sentinel, the last keeper of Krovan knowledge. I have waited a long time for someone worthy to arrive. Worthy? Park stepped forward. Those defenses killed dozens of my crew. They destroyed 17 different alien fleets before us. What kind of test? Murders thousands of people? The kind that ensures only the truly determined survive, the Sentinel replied. The Krovan were warriors without equal. When they prepared to transcend to a higher plane of existence, they left behind everything they had built. But they could not leave it to the unworthy. The defensive platforms suddenly powered down. The weapons that had seemed ready to destroy. The indomitable will went dark. You may approach the planet, the Sentinel said. You have earned the right to understand. Elena gave the order to proceed cautiously. The damaged ship limped through the now inactive defense sphere. As they approached the planet, the crew gasped at what they saw. The Krovan homeworld was dead. The continents were gray and lifeless. The oceans had turned to ice long ago. But at the planet's equator stood a single massive structure. It was a pyramid of impossible size, stretching from the surface into space itself. Energy pulsed along its surface in patterns that hurt to look at directly. Captain, my sensors can't make sense of this structure, Chen reported. It exists in more dimensions than I can measure. It's generating power levels that should be impossible, and there are readings suggesting it connects to multiple points in space-time simultaneously. The Sentinel's voice returned. You wonder why the Krovan left such power behind, why they sealed it away for so long. I will show you. Images filled the viewing screen. They saw the Krovan as they had been, a proud warrior race that had conquered half the galaxy 10,000 years ago. They saw how the Krovan had grown beyond physical conflict and developed technology that allowed them to transcend to another dimension entirely. But they did not abandon this dimension without purpose, the Sentinel explained. They left behind a test. Only a species that possessed courage, determination, and the willingness to risk everything for their people's future could pass through the gauntlet. Only such a species would be worthy of what lies here. What exactly lies here? Elena asked. The pyramid pulsed brighter. The Gateway Network. Portals to 12 different dimensional spaces rich with resources unknown to current galactic civilization. Element 07, which your colonies need, exists in abundance in several of these dimensions. But there is more. Technology. Knowledge. Weapons that could reshape the balance of power in the galaxy. Elena felt her pulse quicken. This was more than she had hoped for. With these resources, humanity could save every dying colony. They could stand as equals to the ancient alien races. But the Sentinel wasn't finished. The Covenant of Advanced Civilizations knew of this place. They knew of the test. They attempted to claim it 4 times over the centuries. Each time they failed. Their mighty fleets destroyed, their ancient pride broken. They knew? Park's voice was filled with anger. They knew there were resources here that could help younger species, and they kept it secret. Of course, the Sentinel said. Knowledge is power. Resources are power. The Covenant maintained their dominance by controlling who had access to such things, by keeping younger species dependent on them, by ensuring no one could rise to challenge their authority. Elena felt rage building inside her. How many human colonists had died while the Covenant hoarded knowledge of how to save them? How many species had been kept weak and desperate while the ancient races maintained their monopoly on power? The Krovan despised such behavior. The Sentinel continued. They believed that power should go to those bold enough to claim it, worthy enough to endure any hardship to protect their people. You have proven worthy, Captain Elena Vasquez of humanity. The pyramid's energy signature changed. A beam of light shot from its peak, enveloping the indomitable will in warm radiance. Throughout the ship, damaged systems began repairing themselves. Wounds healed. Crew members gasped as exhaustion lifted from their bodies. I offer you stewardship of Krovan space, the Sentinel declared. All its resources, all its knowledge, all its power, on one condition. What condition? Elena asked warily. That you do not become like the Covenant, that you share these resources with all species who prove themselves worthy through courage and determination, that you break the old order that has kept the galaxy stagnant for 10,000 years. Elena looked at her crew. They were still processing everything they had learned. The revelation that the Covenant had deliberately kept this place secret, that alien leaders had let species suffer and die to maintain their own power. Before you answer, the Sentinel said, you should know that the Covenant is coming. The moment you activated this system, they detected it. Admiral Krell leads a fleet of 300 warships. They will be here in 4 hours. They will demand you surrender this place to them. They will threaten war if humanity claims Krovan space. 300 ships, Park said quietly. We're one damaged vessel. We can't fight that. No, the Sentinel agreed. But you won't be alone. I can activate all defensive systems in Krovan space under your command. The same defenses that destroyed Covenant fleets before. But using such power means accepting stewardship. It means war with the most powerful alliance in the galaxy. Elena thought of Sarah on New Hope. She thought of every human colony struggling to survive because the Covenant rationed resources. She thought of all the other young species trapped in the same situation, kept weak, kept dependent, kept from reaching their full potential. She thought about what it meant to be human, to face impossible odds, to fight for what was right even when the cost was terrible, to refuse to bow to those who claimed authority through age rather than earning it through action. I accept, Elena said firmly. Humanity accepts stewardship of Krovan space, and we will share its gifts with any species brave enough to stand with us against the old order. The Sentinel's voice carried what might have been approval. Then prepare yourself, Captain. The Covenant fleet approaches. The galaxy is about to change forever, and humanity will be the catalyst. The pyramid blazed with light, and across Krovan space ancient weapon systems awakened under new masters. Admiral Krell's flagship emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of Krovan space, followed by 300 warships from a dozen different Covenant species. It was the largest fleet assembled in a century, more than enough firepower to reduce a single human dreadnought to atoms. Status of the human vessel? Krell demanded from his command throne. Sir, the indomitable will is intact and positioned near the Krovan homeworld, but our sensors are detecting massive power signatures across the entire system. The ancient defenses are active. Krell's scales rippled with surprise. That's impossible. The defenses activate only when triggered by intrusion. If the humans reached the homeworld, the defenses should have gone dormant. Unless, Elder Morna's voice came over the communications channel, the humans have been granted control of them. Krell didn't want to believe it. The Krovan inheritance was supposed to be impossible to claim. The Zephyron Empire had tried 40 years ago and lost 50 ships. The Covenant as a whole had attempted 3 times before that. Each time had ended in disaster. Yet somehow these primitive humans had succeeded where ancient civilizations had failed. Open a channel to the human ship, Krell ordered. All Covenant vessels maintain battle formation but do not fire unless I give the command. Elena's face appeared on the main screen. She looked tired but determined. Behind her, the bridge of the indomitable will showed signs of battle damage, but the crew moved with purpose and efficiency. Admiral Krell, Elena said calmly, I was expecting you. Captain Vasquez, you have violated Covenant law by entering restricted space. You have stolen technology that belongs to the galactic community. You will surrender immediately and turn over control of the Krovan systems. Elena smiled. It wasn't a friendly expression. No. Krell's claws dug into his throne's armrests. You face 300 warships with a single damaged vessel. You cannot win this confrontation. Perhaps not, Elena agreed. But I control the same defenses that destroyed your fleet 40 years ago. The same defenses that have obliterated every Covenant expedition sent here. I've studied the logs, Admiral. I know you barely escaped with your life last time. Krell felt old shame stirring. He had been younger then, more arrogant. He had watched his fleet torn apart. He had run with only a handful of ships while thousands of his crew died. It was a failure that still haunted him. "This is different," Krell said, trying to sound confident. "We have overwhelming numbers." "Do you want to find out if that's enough?" Elena asked. "Or would you rather hear what I'm proposing?" Despite his anger, Krell was curious. "Speak." "The Sentinel has told me everything," Elena said. "How the Covenant discovered this place centuries ago. How you attempted to claim it 4 times and failed. How you kept its existence secret from younger species while letting our colonies die for lack of the resources available here." Murmurs spread across the Covenant fleet's communication channels. Not all species in the Alliance knew this history. Many junior members were hearing it for the first time. Elena continued, her voice carrying across every ship in the system. "The Covenant has maintained power by controlling resources, by keeping species like humanity dependent and weak, by enforcing a hierarchy based not on merit, but on age. That ends now." "You would go to war with the entire galaxy?" Krell asked. "No," Elena said. "I'm offering an alternative. Humanity will accept stewardship of Krovan space, but we will share its resources and technology with all species, not just Covenant elites. Everyone. Any species willing to recognize humanity's sovereignty and treat us as equals can access what lies here." Krell's screen split as other Covenant leaders joined the channel. Ambassador Thrace of the Kolari hissed angrily. "Unacceptable. The hierarchy exists for good reason. Younger species lack the wisdom to wield such power." But others seemed less certain. Representative Vok of the Marlin Confederacy spoke up. "With respect, what wisdom did preventing these resources from saving dying colonies demonstrate? The Covenant's restrictions kept my people from accessing medical technology we desperately needed. Thousands died waiting for permission that never came. The Marlin were not ready," Thrace insisted. "Ready by whose measure?" Vok shot back. "We've been Covenant members for 600 years. How much longer must we prove ourselves?" Elena watched, as fractures appeared in the Covenant alliance. She had suspected this might happen. The younger species had always resented the old guard's control. Now they saw an opportunity for change. Elder Morna's ancient voice cut through the argument. "What exactly are you proposing, Captain Vasquez? Details matter." Elena took a breath. "The Terran Compact. Humanity administers Krovan space as neutral territory. Any species that recognizes our sovereignty gets access to resources and technology on equal terms. No more hierarchy. No more waiting for permission from those who think their age makes them superior." "And what of those who refuse?" Krell demanded. "They don't get access," Elena said simply. "The galaxy is big enough for multiple alliances. Those who want to maintain the old system can do so in their own space. But Krovan territory is now under new management." Krell felt rage and frustration warring inside him. The Zephyron Empire had ruled for 8,000 years. They were the military backbone of the Covenant. To accept this human's terms would mean admitting that age and tradition meant nothing compared to courage and determination. But could they afford another war? The Krovan defenses under human control were formidable, and if several Covenant species sided with humanity, the alliance would fracture completely. "You ask us to abandon 10,000 years of tradition," Krell said. "I'm asking you to evolve," Elena replied. "The Krovan transcended to a higher existence because they kept growing and changing. The Covenant has been stagnant for millennia. Maybe that's why you failed their test." Before Krell could respond, warning alarms blared across the Covenant fleet. "Sir, we have ships breaking formation," his tactical officer reported. 15 Marlin vessels are moving toward the human position. The Keltar delegation is requesting permission to do the same. Multiple junior species are sending diplomatic overtures to the humans. The Covenant was fracturing before his eyes. Species that had chafed under the old guard's control for centuries saw this as their chance for freedom. "Elena," Morna's voice was quiet but carried weight. "If we fire on you, if we attempt to take Krovan space by force, what will you do?" Elena's expression hardened. "The Sentinel showed me recordings of Covenant fleets being destroyed here. I don't want that to happen again. But if you force my hand, I will activate every defensive system in this space. Some of you will probably survive. Many won't. Is maintaining your pride worth that cost? The channel fell silent. Krell looked at his display, seeing his fleet arrayed for battle. 300 ships, tens of thousands of crew members. All could be dead within the hour if this went wrong. He thought of the young officer he had been 40 years ago, confident, arrogant, certain of Zephron's superiority. Then he thought of watching his fleet burn, of the screams over the communications channels, of barely escaping with his life while others died. Captain Vasquez, Krell said slowly, I wish to speak with you privately. One soldier to another. Elena nodded. The other Covenant leaders faded from the channel, leaving just Krell and Elena. Tell me honestly, Krell said, can you truly control the Krovan systems? The Sentinel judges me worthy, Elena replied. Whether that's enough, I guess. We'll find out together if you attack. Krell studied her face. He saw no deception, no uncertainty, just calm determination. You remind me of the Krovan, he said finally. They would have liked you. They valued courage above all else. Is that a compliment or a threat? Both, Krell admitted. And perhaps also the reason why I'm going to propose a ceasefire to discuss your compact in detail. Elena's eyes widened slightly. You're serious? War serves no one if both sides lose, Krell said. And perhaps it's time the galaxy had new leadership, even if they are stubborn, reckless humans. For the first time, Elena smiled genuinely. Let's talk, Admiral. Let's build something new. The negotiations lasted 3 days. Elena met with Covenant leaders aboard a neutral station that the Sentinel had constructed from Krovan technology. It appeared in space between the two fleets, a gleaming structure that showcased the advanced capabilities humanity now controlled. Not everyone was happy about the discussions. Ambassador Thrace and several other hardliners refused to attend, calling the entire process a humiliation. But many others came. Species that had been part of the Covenant for centuries finally saw a chance to be treated as equals. On the third day, just as progress seemed certain, everything went wrong. 6 hardline Covenant ships broke formation and accelerated toward the Krovan homeworld. They were led by Commander Zeth, a Quillari officer who had served under Thrace for 200 years. This is an abomination, Zeth's voice screamed across all channels. We will not negotiate with primitives. We will not abandon the natural order. If the weak-willed will not act, then true believers will. The 6 ships opened fire on the indomitable will. Elena was still aboard the negotiating station when the attack began. She watched in horror as weapons struck her ship. The crew had been at minimal alert status, not expecting an attack during negotiations. Return fire. Park's voice came through her communicator. All hands to battle stations. But before the indomitable will could respond effectively, the Krovan defenses activated. Elena hadn't given the order. The Sentinel had acted independently, judging the attack as a violation of the ceasefire. What happened next was devastating. Hundreds of weapons platforms targeted the 6 attacking ships. Energy beams of incredible power sliced through their shields as if they weren't there. The ships tried to retreat, but it was too late. In less than 30 seconds, all 6 vessels were torn apart. Silence fell across the system. Everyone had just witnessed the true power of the Krovan inheritance. It was terrifying. No, Elena whispered. She hadn't wanted this. Yes, those ships had attacked her vessel, but their crews didn't deserve to be slaughtered. Captain, the Sentinel's voice was apologetic. I acted to protect your ship. The protocols are clear. Any attack during negotiation is met with overwhelming force. Those people are dead because of me, Elena said quietly. Admiral Krell's voice came through. No, Captain. They're dead because Commander Zeth was a fool who couldn't accept change. But this has shown everyone something important. Elena looked at the display showing the debris field. What's that? That you genuinely didn't want to kill them. I watched your face when the defenses activated. You were horrified. Most species who claimed such power would have celebrated destroying their enemies. Krell paused. Perhaps that's why the Krovan chose you. The negotiations resumed, but the tone had changed. The hardliners remained silent. Everyone had seen what happened to those who tried to solve this with violence. More importantly, they had seen Elena's reaction to that violence. She could have destroyed the entire Covenant fleet, but she didn't want to. She genuinely wanted peace. 2 days later, the Terran Compact was signed by 63 different species. Not everyone joined. The Kulari and several other races refused, retreating to their own space. They would maintain the old Covenant structure among themselves, but the majority chose the new path. The Compact's terms were simple. Humanity would control Krovan space and its resources. Any species that recognized human sovereignty and treated Earth as an equal partner would receive access to Krovan technology and dimensional gateways. Disputes would be settled through council votes where each species had equal say, regardless of age or power. It wasn't perfect. Elena knew there would be problems, but it was better than the old system where ancient races controlled everything. Admiral Krell was one of the first to sign. As he placed his seal on the document, he spoke to Elena privately. I lost 50 ships and thousands of crew in Krovan space 40 years ago, he said. I've carried that failure with me ever since. Today I realize something. We failed because we came here seeking to take, to conquer, to claim power for ourselves. And humanity? Elena asked. You came here to save your children, to protect your people. You were willing to die for them. Krell's scales shimmered with emotion. The Krovan valued sacrifice and courage over ambition. That's why you succeeded where we failed. Elena thought about that. About Sarah and the other children on New Hope who would now receive the medicine they needed. About human colonies across space that could finally thrive. About all the other species who had been kept weak and desperate by the old system. I just wanted to help my daughter, Elena admitted. Sometimes the best leaders are those who don't seek power for its own sake. Krell replied. 3 months later, the first supply ships reached New Hope Colony. Elena was there to watch them arrive. She stood on the landing field as her daughter, Sarah, ran toward her. The girl looked healthier already. The preliminary treatments from Krovan medical technology were working. Sarah crashed into her mother's arms. You did it, Mom. You actually did it. Elena held her daughter tight, feeling tears on her cheeks. All the fighting, all the death, all the impossible odds. It had been worth it for this moment. Around them, other families celebrated as supplies were unloaded. Element 07 that would complete the terraforming. Medical equipment that would cure the respiratory sickness. Construction materials to build new habitats. All the things the Covenant had denied them for so long. Captain Vasquez, a voice called. Elena turned to see a delegation from the Marlan Confederacy approaching. Representative Vok led them. We wanted to thank you, Vok said. Our colonies are receiving supplies as well. For 600 years, we begged the Covenant for help. You gave us more in 3 months than they did in 6 centuries. That's what the Compact is for, Elena replied. All species helping each other. Some are calling you the architect of the New Age, Vok said. The human who broke the ancient order. Elena shook her head. I'm just a mother who wanted to save her child. Everything else happened because we refused to give up. Back in Krovan space, construction had begun on Unity Station. It would be the administrative center of the Compact, built from human and alien technology working together. Ships from dozens of species moved through the dimensional gateways, gathering resources that would lift everyone to new heights. The Sentinel watched it all with something like satisfaction. The Krovan had hoped their test would find a worthy successor. They had found more than that. They had found a species that would drag the galaxy kicking and screaming into a new era. Admiral Krell stood on the bridge of his flagship, which was now permanently stationed in Krovan space as part of the Joint Defense Fleet. He watched human engineers working alongside Zephyron warriors, sharing knowledge and building friendships. The galaxy has changed, his second-in-command observed. Is it for the better? Krell thought about the old covenant and its 10,000 years of stagnation. He thought about the new compact with its chaos and growing pains, but also its energy and hope. Yes, he said finally. It's better. The humans taught us something we had forgotten, that the galaxy belongs to those brave enough to fight for a better future, not those who simply claim it by right of age. Across space, the message spread. Humanity had entered hostile territory with a single ship and emerged, having reshaped the galactic order. Other young species looked at Earth and saw possibility. The ancient races looked at humanity and saw the future they had been afraid of. The galaxy had frozen when humanity's Dreadnought entered hostile space. It froze in fear, in shock, in disbelief. But now it was moving again, warming to new possibilities. Elena stood with her daughter on New Hope, watching the sunset over a world that was finally becoming the paradise it was meant to be. In orbit above, the indomitable Will floated, scarred but proud, a symbol of what humanity could achieve when pushed to the edge. "Mom," Sarah asked, "what happens now?" Elena smiled. "Now? Now we prove we're worthy of what we've been given. We build, we grow, we help others. We show the galaxy that humanity deserves its place among the stars. And if someone challenges us," Elena's smile turned fierce, "then we remind them what happened when the galaxy froze as our Dreadnought entered hostile space. We remind them that humanity doesn't back down." Above them, stars glittered in the twilight. Somewhere among them, in a dimension beyond normal space, the Krovan watched. And perhaps, in their own way, they approved. The age of the ancient covenant was over. The age of humanity and its allies had begun, and the galaxy would never be the same.